Hi, it's the 8th of November 2019 and this is on banking and our dossier on the insolvency of Irish Wind. A lot of people didn't agree with what I was saying, but this report in the Irish Examiner, copy in the Times of London, about John Lang realising that he was in trouble with his wind farms. And there's the report there. And I showed this to a neighbouring farmer who didn't agree with me, and that swung him. He says, oh, John Lang would be telling the truth. And remember, the difference in John Lang and every other company is that John Lang is on their own. They built the wind farms here in Ireland and in Europe to have them part of their green portfolio and to be profitable. And they realised that the wind is not blowing enough. That's what that report says. You'll get it online. So I heard it. So the thing, I just want to make sure my microphone's right. So the point about it is, what will this all lead to? Could it lead to a banking collapse? Now, one of the strange things at the moment is negative interest rates. It's never known before that you put money in the bank and you pay them to keep it. And that's the way in Japan and most of Europe. And the Apple Corporation handed Ireland something in the region of approaching 13 billion as an earnest on the tax they owe. The EU is forcing Ireland to charge them tax, and it's been appealed to the court, but as a goodwill they lodge some of the money into Irish government to get it back if they don't have to pay, or to keep it if they do, or whatever. That's fair enough, no big problem there. But the point is, according to the newspapers this year, the Irish government had to pay 170 million for the banks to keep their money. This is unbelievable. So I wanted to ring John on the programme, but John's busy at the minute. But he did make the very good point. The reason why the negative interest rates are there in Europe is that if they put your interest rates positive, if they make it even 1/4%, it'll bankrupt Greece and Italy. They're borrowed to the hilt with bonds. And if they have to pay any interest, down they're going to go. So the only way to keep them afloat is let them have money free, or even pay them to take money. And the implications of that is breathtaking. I mean, this never happened before in the world. And President Trump wants to bring down interest rates in America. And if he brings them into a negative rate, they'll say, oh, that'll boost industry. But where does that go? I mean, you can imagine yourself when you have to pay someone to keep your money. I mean, it's very, very strange. So we're in strange territory, and we have Dossier Bank in very strange territory. And I believe the value of the whole banking system, the value of the underlying loans, is a lot less than they want to let on, and that the wind farm thing is only one aspect that I've managed to uncover by my own investigations. So they're losing 220 million a year, and they're overvaluing their assets. And to explain how overvaluing the assets work, supposing my farm here made nothing, suppose I'm making nothing on it. It was just shut up the gates and let the grass grow across the ditch, no cattle. And at the beginning of the year it was worth 300,000. At the end of the year it's worth 300,000. The profit is nil. Now, we'd say then that the next year, at the beginning of the year it's worth 300,000, and at the end of the year it's worth 400,000. The profit is 100,000. And to get over that problem with land prices going up and down, the farmers have to get stock relief. It's a special tax concession. You only have to pay a certain limited amount of that. And if you're long-term farming, the revenue will accept that they can't be making you pay tax when the land goes up, and then if it falls a bit, they'd have to refund it. It's messy, so they don't push it on you with farmers, but they do for other businesses. And it's a fault really in the accounting system, but there's no real way to get over it, because profit is calculated on sales and cost of sales, and then you have the net profit, and then you have the opening stock less closing stock, and that gives you the operating profit. And there's really no way around that, because in a shop, if you buy in stock, well, you're paying for it, so it's not profit. But if somebody came in the middle of the night and we were a shoe shop and gave you £1 million worth of fancy goose shoes or top shoes and left them there and they're yours, or if somebody willed them to you, then that is profit. You understand? So if you have to pay for the stock, that's one thing. If you don't, it's not. And in farmers, they often in family farms for generations, so you can't really pay for the land or you can't not pay for it. So that's an important feature of accounting system, and it's been used to the full to keep these windmills afloat. Now, one of the things about windmills too is there's no barriers to entry. Anyone can set up a wind farm company. You don't even have to own a bit of ground. You can't do that for beef farming. You have to own the bit of ground or rent it. But in any event, this occurred before with shipping. Way back in the 1700s, when the world was opening up to trade, every Tom, Dick and Harry got a ship. He got a loan and he bought a ship. And but there wasn't enough trade to go around. You see, you didn't need anything, just buy the ship. Same as buying a lorry today to do a bit of trading. And eventually it caused a severe problem. And there was tightening of the law to stop them revaluing the ship and all that, to try and prove that they were viable. A lot of them went down. A lot of them went financially burst. Shipping was overdone. And it's a bit the same with trucking at the moment. If you allow too many trucks, obviously there's less there. And it's the same with taxis. Now, one of the things then is the way of financing with dividends and leverage, that's loans, is if you're building a wind farm, you need money up front, you need a loan, you see, so you do. But once you get it built, then you try to get over to dividend, to shareholders. And that's what Greencoat Renewables is doing. They're doing that. But they're paying dividends out of new investment. So if a new man puts in $1 million into Greencoat, they'll pay a dividend to existing shareholders, and that was illegal at the time of the shipping, and that I think that's when that was made illegal, and it's called fair value adjustments. And of course the Irish government allows anything that's anyway dodgy. They allowed contracts for differences which affected Sean Quinn. They allowed that. The American government refused to allow contracts for differences, said they were too dangerous. You couldn't have that, and it's just too risky. And this is what caused the damage that's so topical now with the Quinn empire. And lucky that a lot more didn't go down with that crack. So our government, of course, is gung-ho. They'll be lobbied, they'll do whatever the lobbyist tells them. And this is the problem. So now, I read in the paper the other day that the AIB has given $5 billion of money. Now, it must be government money. Don't forget how a bond is issued. They're issued in values of 500 million, $500 million. And AIB seems to have access to $1 billion a year. And they're paying ahead to green projects, including wind. And we know the vast majority will go into wind. We also know from a report in the paper that the government is now preparing legislation to force workers to pay into a pension. You'll have to pay into a pension. And they need the money to pump into the wind farms, and the carbon tax is coming. So they need to rescue these badly, and so they're going to force people to do it. Now, however, even with all that forcing, it's highly unlikely that this can be sustained. Don't forget, Colin McCarthy said there'll be NAMA for windmills, and it's already there. They're already bailing them out through parent companies and various other means. So with that in mind, our dossier, there's the opening of the dossier. A dossier is a collection of documents, and we've called it a dossier because it contains the accounts. Now, some people say, could I be sued? No, all the information here is in the public domain. You buy your accounts off the company record office, the company numbers are given, and everything that's here can be backed up. And I don't mind, they can sue me if they wish. I don't think it's a danger. But don't forget, you can lay all the blame on me for the dossier. I take full responsibility for it. No problem. Let them sue all they blooming like. The dossier is a warning to the people and to the government about what's happening. And we know it's right because by now they'd have countered us. And I've locked horns with people on social media, and I know that I'm right because they couldn't answer it at all. So that's what the front page of the dossier looked like, and it's 48 pages long, and it's very good. It has a few sections, and then it goes into the accounts on section 6, and it goes into Greencoat, and it shows this feature. And I'd just like to explain it again once more. There's enough money to pay the costs. So they can pay their costs, all the things, rent rates, all that sort of stuff, repair, all that. There's enough for that. There's enough to pay, we put in the red one, the interest on the loan. In most cases, they can pay the interest. I'll move this back to here, okay? But when it comes to paying the principal, they also need this amount. And all they have, folks, is this amount. You see that there now? See the black thing on top? So that little black lid, that's the amount they have left over to pay off the principal. And that means that when they take this to pay off the principal, it takes 4 to nearly 20 times this amount to pay off the principal. It takes 4 to 5 times the lifetime of the wind farm to pay off the principal. So whereas they need to be paying off this amount, all they can pay off is this amount. And this builds up then, so that after 20 years, you still have maybe up to 80 years to pay off the principal sum. So they can never get their money back. John Joe Dooley and I agree with that. That is standing out in every single example. And funny enough, the most recent one we checked, Gorthile, G-O-R-T-H-I-L-E, I think this, I don't think there's a W in it. But anyway, Greencoat have bought it. It was going under. But it's an undisclosed sum. And this is the first time they ever failed to publish this is the first time they ever failed to publish the first time they ever paid to publish the price they paid. Sorry, the price they paid. Usually they show that they paid a bit of a profit. So they must be cutting back. They must have paid them just what they were out to rescue them. And Greencoat's job is to rescue them. And they're rescuing them through Irish Life and a whole heap of companies that's mentioned in the dossier. And so these companies are pumping in money. And this is the pension fund of the future generations. Right? They're already after pumping in millions out of the National Pension Reserve Fund. And now they have a wealth fund. And economist Colin McCartney wrote in the Sunday Independent, I think it was, or the Irish Independent, that this wealth fund is a sham. It's only a device. And he mentions the wind energy and the whole energy thing. Now, Colin McCartney was the man employed by the government to straighten out Board Snip Nua, how they were going to cut back after the last collapse. And he did a good job. But he's been ignored now. So you have him, you have me, you have the accountant on this, you have John Dooley. And the figures are there. The fact that it's not covered in RTE or anything else just proves that they're running away from this. They're running away from this. So these things are dear to print. They're €6 a go to print the dossier. Right? And if anyone wants to print a few and give them round, fair enough. But what I'm requesting people to do is to get on to the politician. Now, just to explain again, the Dáil Committee of Public Accounts said they couldn't consider it because it mentioned EirGrid. So EirGrid's not that really relevant to it because, I mean, right, they did promise high wind speeds and there could be someone suing them, but that's nothing to do. We don't mind that. It's nothing to do with me. I've taken EirGrid out of it altogether. I've taken EirGrid out. So we're hoping now that they have no reason to reject it and they might give it a reading now. And indeed, if there's any little thing that they're worried about or might expose them to some kind of legal action or something, they can get back to us and we'll amend it as best we can. The core point is there in the company accounts and it's there for everybody. So we might get a reading. Now, they don't want to give it a reading. Now, what they've continually done was they've sent it over to Department of Climate Action. That's Richard Bruton. He's a rip-roaring green. He's not going to consider it. I don't think there's a hope there. It's the Dáil Committee of Public Accounts because they have a duty to protect people's money and public money. Now, they're set up under a Dáil regulation. They're not a government body. That doesn't really matter how they're set up. Now, in all fairness, there seems to be a lot of reasonable people there. I think the chairman is an awfully TD for Fianna Fáil. And there's 158 TDs in the Dáil. And there's a good lot of senators. And there's the people. And all I am asking, now don't forget in the collapse of 2008, John Patrick Nyberg said they were following a herd instinct. And we can't get this out on RT. RT are going bust. Who do they think they are? Here is the Celtic Tiger building up again, and all the hours they spent discussing it and the collapse. And they will not let this be debated. And the same with Vincent Browne. I went to all his country, when he was doing this programme, all around the country, and every time he actually got the microphone taken out of my hand on one occasion. Right? That's what he done. And we are shut out of there. So the media have a lot to answer for, and they're going to pay a very big price, because if this dossier goes through and it's ever an inquiry, they're going to be looked at. So my request, Nyberg mentioned about the herd instinct, that nobody is prepared to stand up. It's all yes men, okay? But just to think of our view of it, there's a number of things. One, the ideal is that it would get discussed on the Public Accounts Committee, and that at least there be some discussion, and that would pin down somebody to take account of it and to raise this matter and to do more with it. Now, the weakness there, we know they have a stone wall up there, is that these people have to get votes. And there could be somebody, there might only even be a councillor, or there might be somebody with influence there. And we have to try and see, can we get somebody in to do it, to get the Public Accounts Committee to read it. Now, if they won't read it, the next thing is to fix responsibility. If there's an inquiry presided over by a judge like Nyberg, or somebody like that, some person to examine what happened, we'll be showing that Colin McCarthy, myself, John Dooley, the accountant, and all of these people, the Irish Energy Bloc, was roaring from the rafters. This is going to come down. This can't go on. And if the Public Accounts Committee refuses to read it, then they will come under the spotlight themselves. So we have a double agenda. One is to get it read, get it considered, and maybe get it back further. The other is to fix responsibility for the refusal to do it. For the refusal to do it. We will be sending one to RTE again. I'll be sending one off to RTE, and we'll fix responsibility. And if you want to send a letter to any of these, TV3 or Matt Cooper or anyone else, do so. Now, we can come again, send them another letter. I said about the cubic metre gone to the Public Accounts Committee. That's all right, do that. But you go into your TD, if he's looking for your votes, and tell him, look at, what are you going to do about this? And he'll look at you sideways. He'll not want to consider. Tell him, come over here. Hold on a minute now. What are you going to do? Pin him down. Pin him down. And you never know. We might actually score. We might actually get that in there. If the Dáil Committee of Public Accounts then rejects it and will not deal with it, then it's only a matter of time, in our opinion, before this comes trundling down. And we need to fix responsibility with the TDs. And indeed, if there's a senator or anyone you know. And it takes a lot of time to get all this done and circulated. The other thing is, if anyone wants to print off a couple of copies, take it, I'll give it to you. You just send an email to me, and I promise faithfully not to keep your email details. That is my absolute promise. They'll be deleted the minute this goes. You'll be asked, did you get it? You reply you did, and that's it. So you can give it to this one, and John Dooley reckons our emails are being interfered with. But it doesn't matter. Sorry, that's wrong. Wait just a second now. The camera's ticking away. I just want to get valivik@gmail.com. VALMHIC@gmail.com. Now, the reason that's Valivik, that means Val, my son in Irish, and my granny used to call me Valivik, you know, Val, my son in Gaelic. So I just use it, VALIMHIC. It looks a bit strange, but that is it, @gmail.com. And if you don't hear from me, send me another one, or send it to somebody else, or get it to me. I will just simply go into the dossier. It's on Google Docs, and I'll go into forward as an email, and I can forward it normally as Microsoft Word or PDF. and get it to you. And when you get it, then you can print it off if you want. You're going to print off a couple of copies and have a look at it and give it round. Now, I think it makes sense. I don't want to be pushing this too much. I think this makes sense because we're the boy crying wolf. We're you know, or the chap in the Amsterdam with his finger stuck in the water. It looks like this can't go on. We're talking about here 6.5 billion exposure. 6.5 billion exposure. That's the value, that's the money pumped into wind farms. And if they can't sell them, if Greencoat stops buying them, and if Anglo-Irish Bank were to cut their lending, the value of Irish wind farms are zero. You wouldn't be able to sell them. Who's going to buy John Lang's? Something it's losing millions a year. They can't pay back. And how can that go on forever? So I think I've made enough. That's 20 minutes. That's long enough, the dossier. So what I'm asking you to do is, it's a bit long to read. It's 47 pages. But if you don't want to read the front, just go into the company accounts. And I accept a lot of lay people are not au fait with the way accounting works. But we've made it very, very plain and written underneath it what they are. But basically, none of them can ever pay back the capital sum. What they're doing is they're either getting a bailout, a forgiveness to the capital sum from their parent company, or they're coming forward and admitting the thing's all over, like John Lang is doing there. And that's the proof. And the thing about Gort Wind Farm, it was built about 2005, I think, around there. It's 2004. It's a big wind farm, and it's coming now to decommissioning. It'll soon have to be taken down. And it owes a fortune. Who's going to pay for taking it down? And all of this is coming up. Remember, these wind farms have no value once they reach their end of life date. And there's huge costs decommissioning, particularly the blades. Huge costs in doing this. A whole heap of junk. So that's it. I think I can't say any more. What do I actually want you to do again? I'm not asking you to read the dossier. Get it anyway. Have it on your email if you have it. If somebody has a few bob and you want to print off a few and leave it to a politician somewhere else, or leave it to one or two and ask them or explain to them what the position is. But I know that the central bank is another one we would look at, and I mentioned this to John Dooley, but he says they're totally set their face against it. And the financial regulator, he seems to be totally set his face against it too. But if the Dáil Committee of Public Accounts goes to look at it, they might come after him, because they're putting these down as going concern, and they're not a going concern. They're insolvent, and the auditors are doing this, and the financial regulator is letting this happen, and the central bank is allowing AIB to loan them vast quantities of money, and this is imprudent. This money can never be got back. But in the end of the day, in my own view so far now, and this might change, and people have addressed the Dáil on wind farms and the noise and the shadow flicker and all that, but this is one that cannot run away from. And of course, what we want is to get the Public Accounts Committee to read through it, and if they want, both I and John Dooley and the accountant and all that, we're all prepared to go up there and look at it. But they don't need us. It's self-explanatory. Right now, the 3,500 megawatts of Irish wind, whoever owns them, is having now to dip their hands in their pocket and come up with 65,000 euros for every megawatt of that. And the next thing you're going to see now are new wind farms will have to have a wind measuring mast, because people are getting a bit iffy about it. They're going to start measuring the wind before they buy them, and you'll see that creeping in, and that has happened in one instance. So the cracks are there. And it has the capacity to impoverish us, and particularly our children, and people now working, like people working here in shops in Kingscourt, in Fraser, in Gypsum Industries in Kingspan. Their pension is going into this if the government have any say. And just on that, it's important too. If you can get a pension that doesn't include wind farms or renewable energy, go for that one, or change into it. I'll deal with that again. Anyway, that's all I can say. The dossier is a good document. I think it's as good a compilation as you would get. It's strictly on something that's going to have to happen. They're going to come down, in my view, and that probably bring the Irish economy with them. I think what will happen is there'll be a global recession, and it's in that then that the value of these will be realised. It'll be like the subprime mortgages in America. It will be realised there's no value behind most of the world's lending, and there's going to be a serious day of reckoning there. That's all I can say to you. Thank you very much for that. I think I've covered everything. See what you can do. If you know people who are into politics and have politicians that they vote for, try and get them to listen at least. Try and get them to understand. Now, I'm being told by several politicians, particularly Fianna Fáil ones, that they can't do a thing. When they go in to complain about this, they're told this is the policy. Well, you have to stick with it. Right? But that's why, instead of trying to get the government to change its policy, why not get it considered by the Dáil Committee of Public Accounts? That's its function. That should be our number one aim. And then if that doesn't work, well, at least we have tried. We have all made our efforts. And it's a good experiment. Is there a situation in Ireland where you can see a disaster coming and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it? Is that the situation? And this dossier is such a case. This dossier will be there available, and if that's the case, then that is the situation. It's the situation that we cannot raise the alarm, but let's not let them get out of it. Don't let it be like Bertie Ahern, nobody told me. Let's tell them. We have a good document now to tell them, and you have proof positive that that's the case. And let's see how they get out of this. The civil servants, the whole lot. When John Kelly, he was a senator in Roscommon, went to put in a bill on the noise of wind farms, he was called into a group of civil servants and they pressurised him big time. They tried to do battle with him. They did not want this. So they're there too, and they're very hard to shift. That doesn't mean we don't try. That doesn't mean we don't give it a lash. And we see RTE now in dire straits. And they have brought this on themselves. This wouldn't be happening if we had a decent media. But it is happening, and now they're paying the cost of that. So listen, folks, I've said enough. I went way over time. We need this dossier promoted. That's my request to everybody. Please promote it. Get it from me, valamhic@gmail.com, valamhic@gmail.com, valamhic@gmail. You just send it to me. My word of honour, your email address will be deleted. Guarantee you. I promise that most faithfully. On my mother's grave, I promise it. I will not keep your details. You'll get your dossier. You'll get an email from me. Did you receive it? You'll answer back, I did, thank you. And your thing will be deleted. And that's that. That's my hand to God. I will not keep your email address. Okay, so thank you very much, folks. And we'll let you go, and I'll get back to my farm work now. And thank you very, very much for listening.